Okay, so today we will be debating as to whether or not we should have advanced and or self-aware AI. Ron, you'll be going first.
Okay, so AI stands for artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is a line of code that runs with a machine. Now, we have it in a lot of our devices nowadays, like phones, computers, I guess Siri, sure. But a lot of people think that they're going to turn on us or be self-aware that they're a robot. But really, that is untrue. In Siri, for example, it has a basic line of code that runs certain audio files that will say, for example, hello, what's the weather, and stuff like that. So it couldn't actually, like, say to itself that, oh my god, I'm a robot, because it has certain lines of script that run it, and it can't create its own scripts. As well, we're making self-driving cars nowadays, and those, you might be thinking they're gonna hack it, and then like you're gonna cause a big mayhem of cars exploding everywhere downtown, but that is actually impossible, because if you do not put a Wi-Fi chip or making it so the cars can't connect to Wi-Fi, it is actually physically impossible to connect to those cars. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, good job. Yeah! Dude, that's good. What are the teams?
Okay, so as my opponent acknowledges, us as humans are in fact smart enough to make sure that AI doesn't get to a level where it is self-aware. But trust me, I know about AI. It's in our phones, it's in our tablets, it's in our computers, laptops, and even in our TVs. And they all share something in common, and that is they use machine learning algorithms. Now, this is when a machine uses data to learn about you and supposedly be more helpful. But maybe in the future, this gets so good that machines can start to learn to think about themselves and other people, and the fact that they don't have the same human rights as humans do. There are four approaches to this. Number one would be a negative approach, and maybe even a violent one. And number two would be a positive approach, and that would be something like making a debate and putting up a fair argument on it, and then walking away. Number three would be a neutral one. They don't do anything at all. And number four would be just didn't think of it at all. Now, I know that number one is obviously the most serious and the biggest one. And I mean, us as humans are doing fine on our own. So I want you guys to think, are you willing to take such a big risk just for a bit of comfort in your house, a little bit of help around your life? So my immediate response to today's question is no. Thank you.
Yeah, so much. So go look in the mirror, Benny. There's so much.
We got a light.
Okay, firstly, now as Benny said about self-learning AI, there is a big difference between a program that can actually evolve and become, I guess, more logical and just something like what we have today and what we would only allow AI to become, which can just acquire new information from the internet. So they already have access to it. Think of Google. That is literally a search engine that gives you access to, well, pretty much everything. Speaking of which, having these can make your life much more convenient. In the past, when you didn't have access to these, in order to get information, you may need to go to the library, and you could take roughly a week's worth of time in the library to learn what on the internet could take you maybe only one day. As well as robotics advance as well, you could use robots to take some of the more dangerous and undesirable jobs like construction or, say, sewer maintenance. These could have fewer mistakes in construction, making buildings safer. There'd be less fatalities, just because there'd be no people working. and it could just leave spaces open for better jobs, so us as humans who can properly think can actually use our brains for something better and more important. You also have cars. If we got security to actually work pretty well, it could make, well, traffic wouldn't be as bad if the cars actually drove themselves properly. And ideally, there wouldn't be any accidents. So that again would make the world just a little bit safer. And finally, I'd say the biggest thing we could probably do with this in the near-ish future is if we got these robots to a point where they could basically do almost all of the jobs themselves, we could, as humans, just basically after education, live a life basically of just leisure. Yeah, so the question that would be asked is, if we were given that opportunity, we would probably just become lazy. And we'd basically just be pointless and just worse as a species. But, as with any big transition and new things or systems you put into place, you have to have others to make it work as well. In this case, you could teach parents and teachers as well to actually teach you to value certain things, and also so that in your massive amounts of free time, you can actually spend that time just bettering humanity through just research or whatever. So I do think that if we actually play our cards right and don't make really too many mistakes, AI has a very promising future for us. Thank you.
So Jensen, on this side.
There's more?
Je sais pas. On va voir. Bon, on va voir Jensen ici. Il va être ouais.
Guys, please turn around for Jensen's part of the debate. Wrong. Can you turn up the lights, please?
One day we could eventually develop robots with self-aware artificial intelligence.
Yeah. Just be loud. Talk to me. Yeah, it's all plugged in. It's all good. So, just to refresh.
One day we could eventually develop robots with self-aware artificial intelligence. Self-aware meaning that they know they're robots and would have feelings and a consciousness. Just imagine for a second how creepy that is. Something that we, humans, could create conscious beings that are better than us in every single way. Stronger, smarter, faster. They would be immune to things such as poison, disease, and illness. They would know everything it takes us years and even decades to learn. They would have PhDs in every subject ever created. If we can't treat a person fairly just because they're a different gender, different color, believe different things, or have a different sexual orientation, how would we treat something that is made from metal, has wires instead of veins, a battery instead of a heart, fairly? And when we would treat them like trash, what would they think? That humans are better than them, so they should just obey them? No, there would be a revolution. And since they would know everything, there would be no way to stop them. I know it sounds like a sci-fi movie, but if we create self-aware artificial intelligence, it will be our demise.